Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I'm Allan Simon. It is Panthers week here in week 7 of the NFL season as the New York Jets at 0-6 are ready to host the 3-3 and suddenly functioning Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have won 2 in a row and they find themselves just one game out of a playoff spot. Meanwhile, the Jets are collapsing from every place in their organization, from the head coach all the way down throughout the staff to the PR team to the players themselves. They feel like an all-time low for the Jets, which is saying a lot, and it's easy to have recency bias because you're going through it. It feels worse than maybe remembering the past feels. But this is as bad as the second year with Adam Gase. Aaron Glenn is maybe not the bumbling fool that Rich Kotite was, but they are the laughingstock of the NFL right now. And we've said it many times, Aaron Glenn's goal was to make this a team you can be proud of. Well, so far, there's not much to be proud of from this team. You have the national media like Dan Orlovsky and Kurt Warner just in open season against the Jets. You have the trade rumors that are now happening, and some of them I think are definitely going to happen. I would be shocked if Breece Hall is not traded. He's coming up on a contract year. There's no reason to have a running back that you don't plan on re-signing on your team. And then you have Garrett Wilson, which I just can't imagine happening. Garrett Wilson's extension that he just signed has not even kicked in yet, and it would make no sense to trade him away. He is your best player. And if the plan is to draft a rookie quarterback with a top pick, like I think the Jets have to do, you want that quarterback to be in position to win. And the irony of this team is that there's an offensive line that is playing okay. Not great, but they have moments where they play great. You have a great wide receiver. You have a nice running back in Braylon Allen that you're excited about, who unfortunately due to injury and, bad performance to start has not taken off in his career. And you have a young tight end who you're excited about too. So if I'm a rookie quarterback, there's something I can build around or build within with this offense, and trading Garrett Wilson away would completely ruin that. But the part of the dysfunction that is the most frustrating is that Aaron Glenn, for a guy who is talking about all the coaches he calls every week and everyone he's talking to, and this is just like when he was on the Lions, this is just like when he was on the Saints, at least in terms of when he's talking to the media, it does not seem like he's learned anything. And I recorded the reaction podcast from the last game, which was the most listened to podcast, so thank you all for joining me in the misery that is this Jets season right now. But he took aim at Brian Costello for asking the question that everyone was going to ask. Did you think about benching Justin Fields last week? When Justin Fields was unable to function, everyone in the world was thinking, hey, you have Tyrod Taylor. Don't you owe it to your team to give them a chance to win and bring in Taylor for Justin Fields? And Aaron Glenn's answer was not just bad. He first snipes at Costello and says it's a ridiculous question when it is the number one question everyone was thinking. I couldn't believe it got that long in the presser before it was asked. And it makes me think, what is this PR staff doing for the Jets that he is continuously ill-prepared for what is the obvious questions? Although they're tough questions, they are obvious and they're the ones that need to be asked by the media, and he's never prepared for them. So it means one of two things. One, the PR staff is not prepping him for these questions. Hey, before you get up there, they're going to ask you if you're going to bench Justin Fields or if you thought about it. Have an answer prepared. We trust Justin Fields. That's why we didn't do it. We still think he gives us a really good chance to win. Yada, yada. Coach speak. So either they didn't do that, or they are prepping him and Aaron Glenn doesn't care. And we are starting to see the word arrogant come out a lot with Aaron Glenn. And there is nothing that the New York sports fan or media loves to feast on more than someone who is arrogant and is failing. And he is currently both. He is off to the worst start in the history of the Jets, quite frankly. He's off to the worst tenure in the history of head coaching. And that's a fact. No head coach has ever started 0-5 in his career, let alone 0-6. And you also see videos that the Jets posted, which I thought was kind of funny, of him, dapping up the team before the game. And I don't see a lot of connection there. And what really concerns me is we know Aaron Glenn has spent time screaming at this team. He's done it post-game. We know in Miami he did it there to the point where the press group could hear through the walls him really chewing out the team. If you keep delivering a message in the way that he is delivering it and results aren't coming from it, players are going to stop believing in him, and that's all what leads to a one-and-done head coach. There are reports in The Athletic today that that's not going to happen. Woody Johnson's going to be patient. I don't think we can ever think we know what Woody Johnson is going to do. I do know that Woody Johnson probably feels really embarrassed right now, and Aaron Glenn made sense. We're now learning that maybe he was the wrong guy, but there was no one who questioned this hiring when it happened. And I think that makes Woody Johnson, who gets killed all the time, probably more frustrated because he brought in a Jets guy. He brought in a Bill Parcells tree guy. He's from Sean Payton's coaching tree. And he has really done a poor job at everything when it comes to being the head coach of the New York Jets. And then you get away from that Sunday press conference, which was really bad, and you get away from the fact that this team isn't playing any better, and you then see that he has the same type of responses with the New York media about Justin Fields. Today, it was about him holding the ball too long. Earlier in the week, it was that he doesn't throw any interceptions. Maybe he has to take more chances, but if he throws a pick, the New York media is going to be bitching about it anyway. Why is that your focus? Why do you're not supposed to care about what the New York media thinks? And especially in something in that framework, like, it makes no sense to be like, hey, I don't want my quarterback to try something because then the media might pick at it. He is certainly fragile right now. And clearly the media part of this is getting to his head, and it cannot be fun. And there's a part of me that feels really bad for Aaron Glenn, that he finally gets his dream job, and it has been a complete failure to launch, and he's 0-6, and he's getting made fun of for the dancing he did against the Buccaneers, and he's being questioned of every move that he makes. I'm sure that is really hard to stand up there and get beat up by the media and by fans, and I'm sure by Woody Johnson, and I'm sure that his coaching staff is frustrated. This can't be fun. But you know what? If you're the right guy to be the head coach here or somewhere else, you got to figure it out. And so far, Aaron Glenn has not done anything to show us that he can figure it out. So the Panthers are an opportunity for that, although I can see this getting really ugly on Sunday. The Panthers are playing better. They seem to be functioning on offense. The injury of Chuba Hubbard ended up turning into a spark because Rico Dowdle's been unbelievable, over 400 yards in total offense over the last 2 games. They have a stud young wide receiver. They have a quarterback who looks like maybe he's finally finding his footing out there. And last week aside, this Jets defense is a really good one to keep getting better against. The Jets defense played great against the Broncos. They deserved to win that game, but because there was a quarterback who was afraid to throw the ball, they lose the game. But the Panthers are in prime position right now to have a winning record, to leave MetLife 4-3 by taking care of business against the Jets. And we'll get to them a little bit more. Just want to make one more point, though, about Glenn. This is not the soft landing spot that everyone thought would be on the schedule, right? The Panthers are now not a walkover win like we all thought when we're doing the win-loss, win-win game in the beginning of the season. Joke's on us, it's just all losses. But next week, you have the Bengals, and the Bengals have a win against Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, and a dramatic win with Joe Flacco leading the way. And now that game feels certainly different than when Jake Browning was playing. And what Aaron Glenn is staring at is the potential of being 0-8 heading into the bye. And that bye week is going to be excruciating. It's already going to be bad, but if he cannot find a win in these next 2 games, that's going to be a 2-week stretch where everyone's trying to take his job away from him. And we've had head coaches that lose their job in the middle of their first year. It is rare. I don't think it'll happen here, but this is shaping up to be really, really bad. So, and it is really, really bad. It's not shaping up to be. It is a complete dumpster fire. So watching the game last night and realizing that the Bengals are not going to be a cakewalk for the Jets, and no one's a cakewalk because the Jets are the worst team in football, it had me thinking obviously about Aaron Rodgers. And that's the other part that's been brought up a lot is look at Aaron Rodgers doing well with the Steelers. And he's been fine. He hasn't been incredible, but he's not turned the ball over. He's finding ways to get the ball to DK Metcalf. He has a huge pass, that goes 60 yards for a touchdown. Looks like they're going to win the game, but Joe Flacco and the new kickoff rules lead to a field goal. A great play by T. Higgins leads to the game-winning field goal. But it's all like, hey, Jets fans didn't want Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Glenn had Rodgers fly out just to tell him that he's fired from the team. And this is where we need to remember that 2 things can be true at once. Aaron Rodgers' time with the Jets was over. It was not working. It did not work. I can understand a new head coach wanting to clear house, thinking, you have time to figure this out and go a different route with this team. And remember, the Steelers wanted Justin Fields. It's not like the Steelers were chomping at the bit to get Aaron Rodgers. They wanted to keep Justin Fields, but they wouldn't pay as much as the Jets paid, which obviously looks like bad money right now. But it was okay to cut ties with Aaron Rodgers. It just also means that the decision, which I think is the right one, was just made by the wrong guy. It was the right decision by the wrong guy. And Aaron Glenn, now in the framework that we see him in currently, him flying Aaron Rodgers out to tell him that he doesn't want him on the team, it just looks worse now, right? It kind of falls into that arrogant, who does Aaron Glenn think he is kind of guy. So it's just making it look worse. And I expect the Steelers to have a nice run. The loss yesterday, dings their chances at the division a little bit, but that division is ripe for the taking because I still think the Bengals are going to struggle as they wait for Joe Burrow to come back. The Browns are not a threat, and the Ravens might, already be done with Lamar Jackson being out and them not being able to win any games. But it is okay that they moved on from Aaron Rodgers. So all the talk of, dunking on the Jets for that part, it doesn't bother me at all. And frankly, I think it's a silly take. The time was done. But it just adds fuel to the fire that is looking at Aaron Glenn and saying, man, this guy can't do anything right. He didn't do it with the quarterback. He didn't do it with how he let Aaron Rodgers go, and on and on and on. So let's take a look at this matchup at MetLife Stadium, 1 o'clock. The only good news is the weather looks like it's going to be a perfect fall day for football. I look forward to grilling at 8 o'clock in the morning and getting out there and eventually just having to suffer through football. And in this game, if Justin Fields goes 3 and out on his first possession, it is going to be a chorus of boos. There's going to be a lot of booing happening from the very beginning. I think it's a safe bet that they're going to announce the defense to start the game. They will not be announcing the offense and giving fans a chance to boo Justin Fields. But if things look like they did last week against the Broncos in London, and Justin Fields looks completely inept, and Aaron Glenn does not make a change, this team is going to quit on him. This fan base that is already pretty done with him is going to be really done with him, and it's going to really, really shape into bad news for Aaron Glenn. If he does make the move and he goes to Tyrod Taylor, because maybe Fields is playing terribly again, you go to Tyrod and he plays a little bit better, maybe they don't win, but they look better, then it's even worse of how Aaron Glenn reacted last week. Because you went from the question being absolutely ridiculous, and the span of 1 week, you then do the thing that the question was about, you bench Justin Fields, and then you look like you don't know what you're doing. And part of the problem with Glenn right now is that in real time, it doesn't seem like he's digesting information. The same way Justin Fields looks lost when he's trying to read a defense, Aaron Glenn is not understanding what's happening in the game in real time. And he painted himself in a corner with that response about Fields. It doesn't mean he shouldn't do it. You got to make the right decision for the team. You got to bench him if you have to bench him. But it's just a really bad look for him in a series of terrible looks. But you look back at the post game from last week too, him not knowing how long the field goal was going to be for Nick Folk to win it is a big problem. He said 68 yards, and then you can tell that a reporter probably made a look because he nervously smiles and then says 65, into the wind. But there was no wind according to reporters there, and it was 62 yards. And he also said that the line they had for their target for Folk was the 35-yard line, which is only a 52-yard field goal. And a couple weeks ago, Nick Folk kicked a 58-yard field goal in a windy MetLife Stadium. So he's missing something here. And part of that's the staff, too. Someone's got to be in his ear and saying, hey, whoever, if the special teams coordinator's got to be saying, hey, target line is the 40. Because we think he can hit 57, 58 right now. It can't be the 35. And if he doesn't know it, then he doesn't know it. That's even worse. So it's all bad. So anyway, the Panthers game. So the Panthers are playing a lot better. Rico Dowdle has been a revelation, taking over Chuba Hubbard. Like I said, over 400 total yards in the last 2 games. Bryce Young has not been great, but he still has been serviceable. He's not losing them games week after week. They have the young stud wide receiver, McMillan, who's looked really good. He has a couple touchdowns, and it seems like he's going to be a nice receiver in this league. And overall, they do give up a good amount of points. They have a negative point differential right now, but you have to think that they'll be able to score a little bit against the Jets. But for the Jets, it needs to be, how do you find a way to function on offense? And if it means running a triple option, you run a triple option. You need to give this team a chance to win. If the defense can give you a performance anywhere close to what happened last week, you owe it to them to try to function on offense and put up some points. And all 11 points last week were a direct result of defense and special teams and had nothing to do with the offense themselves. So overall, the Panthers are the 28th ranked passing offense, but they're top 5 in rushing. So they're going to keep running the ball. And so it does look like Chuba Hubbard is going to play. So that means two-headed monster running game from the Panthers that no one was expecting. And this Panthers team's got a lot of juice in them right now. This was a team everyone thought would be one of the worst teams in football, and they're 3-3. All 3 of those wins are at home. The Jets have 0 wins, including at home, and the Panthers haven't won on the road yet. So something's going to give on Sunday. But the Panthers have an opportunity to just keep that mojo going and keep things moving and give themselves a chance to be competitive throughout the season. And the Panthers have a long way to go before their bye. They have the Jets this week, then they have Buffalo, at Green Bay, New Orleans, at Atlanta, at San Francisco, and then the Rams. So that's a tough stretch. So this is a win they need to keep them afloat as they head into that Week 14 bye. Their offensive line has played really good. They're the number 2 run blocking team according to Pro Football Focus. Their pass protection has been okay, but not great. But the Jets have not been able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Will McDonald, although he looks better, and having Jermaine Johnson in there obviously elevates the defense completely, and Johnson looked great on Sunday. They're going to have to get to Bryce Young and make him uncomfortable, and maybe, just maybe, the secondary can create a turnover and create an interception. It is something that they haven't done all season. They got their fumble last week. On the defensive side, the Panthers, aren't great. They give up a lot of points. They're pretty leaky. Their run defense is within the top 10, but they really struggle with rushing the passer as a whole. So the offense should have an opportunity to be successful for the Jets this week. So no guest this week. It doesn't seem right to make someone have to talk about Panthers-Jets. The Panthers have their own fan podcasts quitting, which is ironic because they're actually playing well now. But they had one group that very famously gave up because they were sick of talking about this team, and Jets fans just sit there and laugh as we, struggle once again with another terrible year. But the 5 keys to the game, they're really simple. Justin Fields, as a running quarterback, is number 5. Through his hesitancy throwing the ball, has also not been taking off as much. He's not been as electric as we saw with that great touchdown run against Miami. I think a way for him to get comfortable early is to have a design run or break off a scramble, do something to relieve some of the pressure and get the fan base on their side, because again, if things start really poorly for the Jets offense, the Boo Birds are going to be out of control. I don't think it's going to be a very full crowd at MetLife Stadium. The Panthers don't exactly have a huge traveling fan base. And what kind of self-respecting Jets fan would show up at that game? Well, I will, I'm sure, with a decent amount of other folks, but all of us who are there will have some things to say if this offense starts out poorly. So Justin Fields will benefit from running the ball early himself. Number 4, it looks like Garrett Wilson is out. He's listed as doubtful right now, but it doesn't seem like he's going to play. Josh Reynolds should be suiting up. It looks like he's going to practice today, or it looks like he did practice today. So he might play, and then you're going to have a lot of the young receivers get in the mix. And so my number 4 key to the game is Arian Smith. Can he finally have a day where he shows off his speed and he makes some plays after the catch? We're going to be forced to watch Allen Lazard play. Josh Reynolds has been fine, and he should get a decent amount of opportunities, but this needs to be an Arian Smith game for sure for the Jets. Number 3, we say it every week, but what can Breece Hall do for you against the Panthers? The run defense is pretty good for Carolina, but Breece Hall had 0 targets in the game last week, and Justin Fields did a lot wrong, and part of that was he was never checking it down to Breece Hall. So Hall needs to find a way to get into the passing game, and they need to force feed him the ball. Without Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall is your best skill position player, and you got to give him a chance to make some plays. Number 2, the defense just as a whole has to show that this is more who they are over the course of the season. There is a lot of games left to be played. They have 11 games left on the schedule. The defense can write a different story. Steve Wilks and Aaron Glenn can put a stamp on this defense that looks better than what it's been for the first 5 weeks and build off of the performance from last week. It seems like Brownlee Jr. was a steal. He forces the fumble. He makes the big play last week. He was flying all over the field. They're a different looking team with Jermaine Johnson out there. Quinnen Williams has to be making some noise. And Jamin Sherwood, although he has struggled in the passing game, is top 5 in tackles this year still. So number 2 is, can this defense be who they should be, which is a middling defense, not the worst defense in football. And number 1, it's all about Aaron Glenn. And that includes the performance of Justin Fields and what he does about Justin Fields in this game. And I need to see, and we need to see, Aaron Glenn show that he has a clue against the Panthers. He needs to make decisions that work. He cannot be clueless at the end of halves. He says, coming into the season that the last 4 minutes of every half is coaching, and he's been terrible and the team's been terrible in those moments. And when asked about it, he said that the decisions are right, but the execution was wrong. And for captain accountability, that's not exactly what you want to hear, taking none of the blame and then pushing the blame on his players. So this needs to be a different Aaron Glenn. He needs to figure this out. He needs to get his arms around talking to the media, and he can't be standing on the sideline with a 1,000-mile stare, not sure what to do. And overall, if this team doesn't show up on Sunday, it's going to be a direct reflection on Glenn. So that's the number 1 thing is how does Aaron Glenn look on the sideline and before and after the game for the New York Jets. My official prediction for this game, I refuse to pick the Jets to win until they prove they can do it. This theoretically is a game they should have a chance to win, but until they show that Justin Fields can score points against someone that isn't his former team and can do that before they're down 2 scores, I don't think this team is going to be winning. So my prediction is the Carolina Panthers 24, the Jets 10, and I think it's going to be another ugly week for Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets. So this has been a happy-go-lucky episode 23 of the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I'm Allan Simon. Thank you for listening.